Yeah, so what does a good dialectical integration between human and AI coaching stroke supervision look like? Ursula, do you want to give us a few pointers just to begin with?
Yes, thanks, Nick. So obviously, the starting point is that AI is no longer a distant or optional topic. It is, as we just even have seen this evening, increasingly embedded in the infrastructure around coaching or coaching supervision, platform, search, transcripts, email, and so forth. So that also means the question is no longer simply, shall we use AI? Actually, much of the time, AI is already shaping the material, the pace, the expectations, and this is something we are also going to explore in our demonstration a bit later on. And a client may arrive with an AI-generated reflection. I've seen that quite a bit in supervision, where I give a reflective question or homework, and suddenly there's something very yeah, very formulated, very elaborated arriving. And so it's quite evident that AI has entered the reflective space as well. A platform may organize the record, sometimes without even a person actively choosing that influence. So that goes a little bit into the ethics, and we will touch on that. AI can widen access, reduce friction, and support thinking. It can also make interpretations available at a speed and scale that were obviously before impossible. But at the same time, it matters developmentally as AI can amplify existing patterns. It may magnify curiosity and perspective taking. It may also magnify avoidance and dependency, reassurance seeking. So we are going to look a little bit at this both sides as we go into bad cop, good cop. So our central question is not only what AI can do, like Nick said earlier, it is what AI changes in how meaning, authority, judgment are organized and how we can work with that responsibly.
Yeah, so just thinking about what AI seems to be able to do and do pretty well at the moment. Right up front, it captures dialogue, records the session, produces summaries, and does that much quicker than I can do it. So it's pretty useful there. Secondly, it offers a bit of way of structuring sessions, can give you some pointers as to what to start with, or what are the main um, things to focus on, and so forth, and suggest a few questions you might ask. And then as it listens to a coaching session, it will identify things that are important, the patterns that come up, um, key moments that the client talks about. And then after the session, it can give you what it considers to be, I think, from a stage four-like position, if I can use that term, um, what coaching best practice or even coaching whole practice looks like, because obviously AI is getting its model of coaching from somewhere. And then lastly, I think AI potentially offers some different perspectives on how you can go about coaching. But what it can't do, it seems, is view the coaching from the benefit of human lived experience. And it doesn't have the facility, although it may feign the facility, to express empathy and understand someone's feelings in the same way as another human can. And of course, it doesn't bear any responsibility, either from a kind of ethical or a professional or a legal standpoint, from what it comes up with. So it really doesn't know um, what consequences are likely to be of the things that it puts forward. And it can't make any effort of human judgment or even kind of self-authoring what it tells you. It just pours stuff out, and you either make sense of it and work with it, or you can reject it if you want. Ursula.
Thank you. Before we go into the demo, it may also help to look at that map where AI can enter. We mentioned already a couple earlier, but we'll go through that quite quickly again. It's already in the water. I have come to call AI as a developmental condition. It's around us, we work with it. We have the digital platforms, transcription, search, email, video conferencing. And this is the infrastructural layer, and it is often also not, it's often the least visible to us, yet it is there. Second, it may enter before a session through preparation, like I just gave the example of the reflective homework, summaries, case formulation, looking for risks before we go into a session, question generation, all sorts of things. Third, it may enter during dialogue. I've made that experience as well, that in a live session, there was an inquiry in terms of prompting or translation, clarification notes, alternative framings. And lastly, it may enter after the session through journaling, documentation, pattern tracking, reminders, or analysis. And we might see some of that later on. So the developmental issue is that each entry point can be both useful and less useful. And this is what we are going to explore today. A pre-session formulation may prepare us, and it also may narrow us what we are able to notice. A live prompt may open perspective, and it may redirect attention away from the person, from the client. A longitudinal record may reveal patterns, and or it may privilege only what can be captured as text or data. This also raises contracting questions. Which AI tools are present? Who has consented? Also here, most of us will have made the experience that AI tools were in the room, and it was not contracted for or agreed upon. Excuse me. So also what authority is being granted to the output. And with authority, we are immediately also at authorship, the responsibility or the capacity to be responsible for the output of what is generated or shared with others. So here again, we wanted to share you that map before we go in a little bit deeper. Nick?
Well, I think AI is great in coaching. It's efficient. It can democratize coaching because it can bring the cost well down. It really helps if you're trying to cross different time zones. It can do the translations for you. Um, People, it seems, will talk to AI quite openly. Um, so it encourages them to come out with whatever's on their mind. And it provides a record, so it joins sessions together across time. And I think it facilitates clients' thinking by giving them new perspectives and new ideas. Ursula.
Bad cop coming in here. So obviously, availability is valuable, although that does not necessarily create a developmental relationship. A developmental relationship includes reciprocity, challenge, consequence, and also responsibility. And the other person is affected by us, and we are affected by them. There is a real relational field, and AI may simulate warmth and intimacy, but it does not participate in that relational field I was just speaking about as an embodied, accountable other. So, and this is also why response can feel deeply accurate and at the same time can remain in a not really on the surface of everything. So here the response is generated through pattern completion, but it does not arise from lived attunement to a person in this very moment. And there's also authority, the risk of authority drift. I was speaking about that shortly before. Repeated consultation, especially under pressure, can quietly move that authority into what does the system say? Let me look this up. What does ChatGPT say? But not necessarily stay with the person any longer. So again, here, what happens with authority, authorship, that would be from the bad cop side. Nick.
Yeah, but think of the time that it can save and the effort. Um, it enables clients to look at what they've said and, maybe examine the assumptions underlying or underpinning what they've offered, even to consider the whole stance regarding a particular problem that they're facing and how that's influenced by their past and their culture and their values and their sense of purpose. I mean, AI can pick up the kind of assumptions that people are making off a whole range of new perspectives and identify the weaknesses in people's arguments just at the snap of its fingers. Um, and it's comprehensive. It's easy to understand. It explains things to people. And more than that, it will give you kind of immediate feedback, giving you a chance to review what's happened and remember what's happened and revise your thinking. Ursula.
Mm, bad cop coming in. I call this the developmental poison. So the danger is not that AI language is necessarily wrong, Nick. The danger is that it can be right too quickly in a language that appears more integrated than the person's actual lived capacity. So AI can produce a balanced, systemic, very articulate, even emotionally articulate reflection, while authority, affect behavior, and responsibility of the person actually remain unchanged. So the verbal formulation matures faster, it seems, than the person. And there's another other term I started to use. I call it pseudo development, where coherence or quick coherence that we seem to be arriving to with AI, it replaces tension that we do need to develop. And articulation does replace integration, and often resolution, quick resolution, does replace inquiry and the invitation to reflect. So contradictions may be organized into plausible narratives before the client actually has lived through them. And a new vocabulary becomes available, yet the question is under pressure. Can the person stay with that or not? So again, what becomes different when pressure returns? What can the person hold, now hold, in the future hold? And most important, take responsibility for and authority for. And certainly also here, we also at the embodied level, we also need to consider that. Nick.
Yeah, but you're just trying to keep coaches in business, Ursula. Let's face it. Let's face it. The clients will catch up eventually, even if AI is a little step ahead of them. There's all these things that it can do that a coach would just never get round to in time. Again, it's sufficient. It generates all the questions. It compares different ways to think about things. Um, and you know, during the session, it can come in, provide some interpretation, provide a bit of support, pick up things that have been said, and give reminders, keep the coach focused. Um, After the session's over, it gives the coach a whole host of ideas, thoughts, reflections, and provides summaries for clients so they can review what they said. Um, and then over the course of several sessions, it can identify patterns, themes that would often be missed. So there's loads that it can do to help improve a coach's work. Over to you, Ursula.
So here I would say that efficiency on the surface can hide what has disappeared. Efficiency can reorganize the work before we even notice what has disappeared. The textual artifact or thingy may gradually become the primary account of an encounter, of an interaction, an embodied relational interaction, while the embodiment, contextual, relational, and ethical, even ethical data recede. So before the session, what you highlighted for us, Nick, over preparation may create a very polished frame that narrows responsiveness before contact even. You begin to meet a formulation rather than the person. Same for during the session, between sessions. So I'm going to reduce my poison for time sake so we can move a little bit quicker through that here. But just to go to across time, what is measurable becomes very privileged. And linguistic sophistication, completed actions, recurring keywords are easier to count than hesitation. Andres, are you listening to that? Embodied dissonance, no. Ethical courage. How do we measure these things? How do we pick up on that? Or the changed capacity to remain present under pressure. You will see me crumbling in the coaching session in just a moment. How do you measure that? So I'm not absolutely not arguing against records or the pattern analysis. It's just that we remember the script is not the encounter, and the summary is not the relationship, and the discourse is not the development. Enough poison here.
Yeah, look, Ursula, we're never going to agree. Um, yeah, maybe the thing to do is get some evidence on how AI actually plays out in a session. Maybe we can take a look to see if it offers enough challenge to stretch your meaning making, but not perhaps so much that you kind of collapse into defensiveness or just agreeing with everything that we put forward. And maybe we can make sure that you're aware of the influence of AI during the session. So it just isn't there, behind the scenes, but it's more of an active player. And maybe, we can see that AI is not going to destroy the human aspect of the relationship between us in the coaching. And then finally, we can have a look to see if you can still think dialectically, can hold, process, context, relationship, and contradiction and transformation together in the session without AI becoming intrusive and guiding your thinking into one formulaic solution.
Thank you.
So thank you. Let's try it out. But before we do, does anybody have any questions, comments, or thoughts? Thank you. Great comment.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else, or shall we dive in?
Nick, can I just yeah, I'm just sitting with a few of these things. One distinction that I think it's worth just holding in mind is that there's at least a couple of different relationships that we can have with AI as coaches, as therapists, right? And they have very different dynamics. One is the one we'll see that you'll show us now with Mentri, where the AI is not interfering or intervening in the relationship and is not coaching, but it's supporting rather. And that's a very different dynamic with AI supporting you as a coach. But then there's this other relationship, which is the AI doing the coaching or doing the therapy. And that brings in a whole different set of dynamics. So I guess all I'm saying is that I just find it helpful to realize that there's these different sort of relationships that we can be having. Though, and I think we're all just exploring what these are and what they mean and what they feel like. And so yeah. So anyways, I just thought that was helpful, at least for me, just a helpful distinction to bear in mind, right? That there are different kinds of roles that AI can
It
play.
is. Thank you, Andres. And it's an important one.
Yeah, different people will find different tools and different ways of using AI. And there's, as yet, there's no real consensus on how to do it or how to avoid doing it badly. But hopefully we can get a little bit closer to that today. So I'm just going to share my screen and show you the interface. And then once I've done that, I will bring Mentri into the session, and Ursula and I will have a little bit of a conversation. So let me just see if I can share a screen. You should be able to see the interface with Mentri here. And you notice that it's set up at the moment for just two clients. That sample client is an existing client of mine whose anonymity I've preserved for today's session. And Ursula as a client is set up here. Before we do the coaching session, Mentri asks various questions, and it asks you to fill out a little bit of detail. I won't go into all of these things there, but it asks for a bit of coaching context, a bit of information about the client, and how you might work with it. Um, so there's nothing in this session preparation yet because we haven't had a session, Ursula and I together so far. So I'm going to bring Mentri into the meeting. And I need to paste a link. So bear with me a second. Just got to find the link. And now I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And hopefully Mentri is in the session.
It is. Just joined. They're at the end.
Perfect. Okay. So Ursula.
Yes, Nick.
Hi.
Coach Nick.
Good afternoon, Ursula. Lovely to see you again. I'm going to cut the preamble a little bit short, just in the interests of time. But I know you told me before this session that you've embarked on a seriously interesting project, examining a tool called the Need Press questionnaire, for I'm right.
Yes.
And your hope is to see if it sheds any light on the sort of obstacles that come up to somebody's development. Is that something that you'd like to talk about today?
Yes, I still would appreciate the possibility to reflect a little bit on that and see what comes up, what arrives for you. So yes, thank you.
Well, wonderful. Maybe just to begin with, you could say a little bit about how you're experiencing your work on this project.
Well, to give you a little bit of a context of the project, this inventory called, like you just said, the need press inventory It looks basically at three things. It's what a person needs in order to function, what they believe is an ideal organizational environment. So it's obviously an organizational assessment tool, and also what their actual experience is in an organization. So the interesting material often lies in the tensions between these three perspectives. So not exactly the absolute scores that you get in the report, but the tensions that start to unfold between these three areas. Yeah. And tension, when I say that, I mean, for instance, somebody can, as an individual need, can have a need for autonomy, while at the same time desiring in the ideal organization a reliable support environment. And then again, the actual organization can look very different. So you can see how there are tensions that build up. And I'm slowly now coming to my inquiry for today. The original research question, we have three researchers on that. And I'm not interested in necessarily the ethical review board reaction when I share with you where my dilemma is. More sensing what is happening with me developmentally or emotionally with this project. Um, the original scope of the project was extremely narrow. It is basically what do we learn from this instrument when we speak about the interface between coaching and therapy. The expectation has not been to ever use this instrument with a client that is actually in that interface or in that narrow space. The expectation has been, do we find results, patterns, data, information that will allow us to eventually arrive at a dialogical process, to work with the client, to reflect with the client whether therapeutic support might be helpful for them. So it's not to arrive at a diagnostic tool, to use that inventory. It, by the way, takes a long time to fill it out, so it's not feasible to chase clients through that. Now, we are halfway through the study. We had very good enrollment, very good participation, very interesting data, and something very interesting happened. And when I say scope creep, I'm not necessarily speaking about the project in the sense of, oh my God, the project management, I can't handle it, or there are so many resources required. I'm speaking about scope creep in the sense of the data gave rise to a very bigger surface than we had anticipated earlier. And going through the research, we catered to that larger space. And we are now not only looking at this very narrow interface, therapy coaching, we are looking at large developmental tensions that pop up for a person as a person in whole, whether being in coaching, being not in coaching, being in therapy, simply as a person, apart from the status of what we had initially gone in with. Get psychological support or therapy, is in coaching, is not in coaching. So that kind of has shifted to the side. We are now looking at clusters of developmental tensions arriving for persons as a whole and how they can be worked with in developmental practice, whether that's coaching, therapy, doesn't matter, developmental practice. So, long way round to my question, am I looking at an extension of the original study? Am I or are we looking at a second strand within it? And again, I don't look at the formal aspects with the ethical review board and an end this would require. I'm more looking at it conceptually, developmentally. Or is this simply, am I seeing a larger contribution or direction this is leading towards without necessarily needing to be addressed right now or considered right now, other than that obviously it has stimulated a lot of conversations already with participants, with their clients, a lot of curiosity among vertical development practitioners. about the instrument, how it can be used with the large tensions, how we can possibly develop a dialogical method away from the instrument to explore these developmental tensions. So that is my dilemma that I'm bringing, and where I would appreciate you guiding me through a little bit of reflection.
Well, thank you for the explanation. It sounds a fascinating project, and also listening to you, you sound enthusiastic and excited about it. But I'm kind of
Hmm.
wondering a little bit if you could say where, if anywhere, your anxiety lies about the project going in one or other direction.
What um what made you pick up on anxiety? You made me curious, because on my side I feel more curiosity, noticing, yes, clearly enthusiasm, passion, and I'm intrigued by your question. Would you mind sharing the where you felt anxiety has entered the field?
Well, it was something to do with the way you posed it as a dilemma
Ah,
that
mm-hmm,
struck me that you were concerned about having to make a choice between these two alternatives.
mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. You reflect a little bit on that. Can we look at you picking up on the dilemma, fearing this would present an either or? Could you guide me towards other options that might come into existence as you were listening to me? Does something arrive for you that it might not be an either or?
I'm not sure I can offer you a solution off the top of my head, um, but maybe one way to explore this a little bit further for you would be to simply ask what would be a good result coming out of this
Mm.
project for you? Where would it land you?
Actually, all the different strands that I visited, and I noticed what would be all brilliant results. And what I noticed when I was giving the actually only the third perspective of maybe this is giving rise to an outcome and a larger developmental tension dialogue process, not limited to coaching therapy interface, but really exploring dialogical tensions across the human. That already, I felt a physical relief, and that might be already my answer to. I got in with a dilemma. The is it part of it? Is it not part of it? And seeing it as it gives rise to an outcome and maybe a next research, that might be already move me into out of the dilemma, or as you consider it, possibly a bit of a fearful space. So yeah, looking at, does that make sense to you?
Well, I was wondering if there's something particularly that you'd like to have happen here as a result of all of this work that you're doing.
Obviously, one engages in research to find that the hypothesis we go in with are validated. So yes, that would be wonderful. At the same time, I also wish for the interactions that have been very, very fruitful and the expanded scope to produce even more and even more benefit for the community for this to come. This would be wonderful. And I do not necessarily think about it, and I realize that as I'm speaking with you here, only in terms of this research project and what I want to see and nail in a paper, or but as an outcome for us as practitioners. Because having realized how the psychogenic aspect of the knee press, which is horizontal and not in the vertical domain, how this can actually stall vertical development, and how this does arrive and land for so many vertical practitioners, that this might be very valuable to integrate that. So that is a very joyful thought for me as a vertical development community to pursue that rather than validating one more psychometric tool, or arriving, it cannot be validated at that time. So would be also a clear outcome. Yeah.
So I sense then a possibility for you that the tool might fade a bit into the background, leaving you with the insights and the learning and the expansion of your work into understanding the way adults develop in a little bit more detail and
Mm-hmm.
depth.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for framing that back to me. Yes.
Well, we've done a bit of work today. Do you think we should leave it there for now? Is that enough for today?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Let me just see if I can stop Mentri now.
Yeah. Yeah, Nick, just as we discussed, yeah, just make sure you do it within Zoom.
Remove from Zoom
There we go.
without reporting it.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
report. Okay. I think Mentri is left. And now we should have a little look at what Mentri makes of that. If I go back to Mentri's interface, Andres, would you like to guide us through a little bit of that?
sure. Yeah, happy to do that. You go ahead and go and share screen. So what Mentri is doing now, it's producing a series of outputs that's trained to do, meant to be beneficial or supportive for the coach, but then as we'll see also for the client, and we'll walk you through what some of those outputs are. Um,
It's just been having a little think about it. I think it's done.
all right. Excellent. Okay, so just very simply, what it does is once it's processed everything, and as you could see, it took about a minute to do it, and that's quite normal. It gives it a title based on immediately, right? Based on what was discussed. And there it is. Yeah, research project scope and developmental tensions. Yeah, it gives you a little red dot, meaning that it's new, that it's unseen. So I think the first step that we should take is go into the client recap. And Charles, you feel free to fill in if I miss anything. So this is one of the primary outputs, and this is meant for the coach to copy, edit, and then share with the client. So I'll invite everyone to just quickly read that session summary and just you can judge for yourself how aligned it was to what we heard.
Do I read it out? Just use both channels.
Sure. Do you want to read it, Nick, or I'm
Yeah,
happy.
I'll read it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
We explored the evolving scope of your needs press questionnaire research project and the tensions that have emerged as the data has revealed a much larger surface than originally anticipated. You arrived with a dilemma about whether the broadening focus constituted an extension of the original study, a second strand, or something else entirely. Through reflection, you noticed a physical sense of relief when considering that the expanded findings might give rise to a future research direction rather than needing to be resolved within the current project. We closed with a sense that the instrument itself may fade into the background, leaving you with richer insights into how developmental tensions can be worked with in practice.
So what I'm curious about, well, Nick and Ursula, you were in it, you were having this discussion. How accurate does that feel, or how aligned do you feel it captured
Yeah,
the key
100%
points?
to me. What do you reckon, Ursula?
Also quite accurate, yes. As a
Yeah,
summary, yes.
great.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
again, that's yeah, that in the yeah, that session summary you can copy it, edit it, and then send right to the client.
Hmm.
What you were most focused on, the three key themes, so it picks up on what those are. I don't know, we need to read the whole thing. My mind's already going to key moments, but feel free to stop me. Key moments I find quite interesting personally, just because it pulls out verbatim quotes to 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 present or to to sort of show what were the kind of the high you know not value moments, but just the most kind of significant potentially. Um, yeah, I can read the first one. So this is in quotes verbatim. I'm speaking about scope creep in the sense of the data gave rise to a very bigger surface than we had anticipated earlier. And then Mentri's take on it is what follows. This was a significant reframing. You distinguish the conceptual and developmental dimensions of the scope shift from the practical project management concerns. It signaled that your real inquiry was about meaning, not logistics. So it picks up the sort of the pivotal moments. Again, according to it, in the conversation, but it is trained, right, to identify these. There's some criteria involved there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm going down, but Nick, if there's something that you wanna point out here, we can pause on it.
If I could just
Um,
jump in, I'd be curious again, Ursula. Obviously, it's picked out three key moments there. Do they resonate with you as key moments?
They do resonate with me. If you go up a tiny bit, um, when we speak about what you were most focused on, and the third bullet, the desired outcomes, where I sensed I felt, or where I felt boxed in, was I came in with a desire to reflect, and I was asked about outcomes and results I want to produce. So that was a bit of a tension I sensed going through the session. And yeah, it, I don't know if it did pick up on that, but in terms of key moments, absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. All right. Um, okay. So then we have a commitment section, but no commitments were made. So, homework essentially in between sessions, but if they had come up, they would appear there.
Mhm.
And then this final section, so Mentri generates what it considers three good reflection questions that the coach, US coach, may decide to send to the client before the next session. Um, and so so Ursula, if you maybe take a look at the first and second one and just give us a sense of how helpful would this be to reflect on, given how the conversation went today.
Very, I do, that does pick up on the question that is moving,
Yeah.
rotating. At the same time, don't show this to my fellow researchers. They were like,
Great,
what?
great. So this is I always find this to be an interesting feature because it's meant to help sort of extend the sort of insight or the learning and development in between sessions, right? So this has always been early on. This was quite experimental for us, but that's the goal. That's the design of this, and yeah, these can go out automatically. You just schedule it, and the person gets an email. That's a
And
smart.
also number two,
Yeah.
I find very, very intriguing to also in developmental to stimulate the invitation to look for patterns or the parallel process. So yeah, where else does this show up? Is that something, that goes beyond the project? Is that something more about you, moving, moving towards, moving beyond? Yeah,
Yeah.
very thought-provoking. So,
Yeah. That is a good catch. Yeah, it's almost a little bit out of the box. That's how it feels when I'm reading. I don't know if it feels that way for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Which is a bit, yeah, and sometimes it is quite surprising. I mean, what it can pick up on, right? Things like
Mhm.
that. And the
Yeah.
third one, how might you share these emerging developmental attention findings with a vertical development community in a way that matters?
Also very good.
Nice question too. Yeah. And these are editable, and they will be sent out to Ursula if I put in her email address. Is that right, Andres?
That's right. And you choose whether or not to send them, when to send them, all of that. And the little uh pencil icon there, you can click it and then edit it. So if it doesn't feel right, you can change the wording. Um yeah, because this is, oh, there you go. Yeah, just click into it. Um yeah, the idea is for all of this to be very coach-led, coach-driven. The coach holds the final word and judgment on all of these things. To respect that. So yeah, so that's the first output essentially from Mentri's decline recap. Yeah, and the coaching debrief is the next one. Now, so Nick, now you're in the hot seat a little bit. So Mentri is commenting on what it thought Nick did well and what he could try differently next time. Um, so Nick, I think I'm really curious just how some of these land, and maybe Ursula, you can comment on some like what worked well. Did that feel accurate? Did you notice that was good or that was effective somehow?
Yeah, I was reflecting that that didn't land too well when I when I put it to Ursula initially.
Right.
Um, but there's a positive spin on it there from Mentri, so thanks, Mentri.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. Give you a point there. But I also just personally I find it interesting that it picked up on that. I think
Mm.
us listening in the room, we noticed that was a point of, whatever you call it, of tension or of, you know, provocation, but it picks up on those surprisingly well, I find, right? Um, those moments that we feel just being there watching it can pick up on, even though it's an LLM, it's just a machine, that sort of thing. So, um, how about this next one? Outcome-oriented reframing. So it's framing this as a positive. The question about what a good result would look like helped Ursula move beyond the dilemma frame. Ursula responded with visible relief and new clarity about the project's broader purpose. What would be a good result coming out of this project for you? Where would it land you? Redirecting toward desired outcomes unlocked a perspective Ursula hadn't previously articulated. How does that land when you read it?
Um, well, I think we need some feedback from Ursula on that one because you weren't quite so happy with that either, were you, Ursula?
I just want to say I felt I redirected myself. I coached myself a little bit in that moment. So, but at least it picked up on the significant moments,
Yeah,
and that happened. And yeah, yeah. Mm.
yeah, great. And then this last one, you offer reflective synthesis. You offered a concise summary that captured Ursula's emerging insight, Nick. The tool fading while the developmental learning endures. Ursula confirmed this with clear agreement and gratitude. The tool might fade a bit into the background, leaving you with insights in the learning. This synthesis helped Ursula crystallize what had surfaced throughout the session. Yeah. Okay. Did that one land? Does that resonate for you? You're reading it?
Yes, and
Yeah,
I do also think we need to keep in mind this was 15 minutes. This was
Yeah,
completely out of context.
yeah,
So I think we also need to consider that
yeah.
in the entire analysis. So definitely,
Great point.
yeah.
Great point. All right. So,
good.
Nick, are you ready?
Yeah, I
Quite
love.
differently. Staying with the client's frame, when Ursula described their experience as curiosity, enthusiasm, you introduced the word anxiety. There it is, it picked it
Here
up.
it comes.
Ursula gently challenged this, noting they hadn't felt anxiety, which may have briefly disrupted attunement. What made you pick up on anxiety? You made me curious because on my side, I feel more curiosity. Try
You
reflecting the
can call
client's.
me Mentri now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. So,
Schoolboy era. Yeah.
so Nick, it suggests try
Bad cop.
reflecting the client's. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's telling you to reflect the client's own language first before introducing a different emotional label. With it, how do you think that would have felt, Ursula, if Nick had done what Mentri is suggesting, reflecting the.
It I think it would have allowed me to think more quickly into think with an S, not think more quickly into an embodied reflective state. That did stall me a bit and
Yeah,
brought me back into the head, into analyzing. So yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm just a sort of meta comment. I find it interesting that it picked up again. It's only 15 minutes. I think
Positive and the
better.
negative. Yeah.
Yeah, it picked up. It framed it both as a positive because you picked
Hmm.
up on something. I don't know, maybe deeper, more emotional, but it also picks up on the, little misattunement there. Interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was a risky move on my part, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See the next one. Following the client's invitation, Ursula explicitly asked you to guide them toward options beyond the either or dilemma they had presented. Rather than exploring that opening, the conversation moved to a different question, which may have bypassed a rich moment. Could you guide me towards other options that might come into existence? Consider pausing. That's the recommendation. Consider pausing when a client makes a direct request and exploring what sits beneath it before redirecting. Um, yeah.
yeah, that should have caught me unawares on that one. A little bit of contracting might have been useful beforehand. Um, so she had me, yeah,
I
guilty as
turned into the
charged.
supervisor in the middle of the session.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just reflecting that. I mean, just knowing that you're going to get feedback after every session, right? If you're using a tool like this, um, knowing that that's always coming, right? I think we hear from people that it can feel supportive, right? Or, just that you're not just there in a vacuum, not getting feedback. Yeah. And this last one, allowing more spaciousness. The session was relatively brief and closed quite quickly after the key insight emerged. We only had 15 minutes. Lingering a little longer could have helped Ursula deepen the felt shift they describe as physical relief. We've done a bit of work today. Do you think we should leave it there for now? Nick, you jumped the gun. Try inviting the client to sit with a new insight before moving towards closure. There you go. So those were the three. Yeah, suggest three experiments, and these are I think they're primarily based on the what to try next time that we just read. Mirroring client language, exploring direct requests, and extending post insight silence. All right. Nick, is this I wonder. Yeah, so are these elements that I don't know if that's strength finder, growth edge, are these elements that you introduced or no? Into your like the onboarding questionnaire. So Charles.
I hadn't seen this before actually. So
Nick,
Yes,
when you
question.
set up your profile, did you fill in an onboarding questionnaire about your coaching methodology,
oh
your
yeah, yeah, I would
areas you
have
want
done.
to
Yeah.
improve, areas you yeah. So this is picking up on that. So it's reading the transcript through the lens of your own, how you've described the coach you are and the coach you want to become. or the coach we're trying to evolve into, essentially.
Okay.
So it reflects back some strengths and some growth edges as it frames it here. Do these resonate with how you you filled out that onboarding?
I'm trying to remember actually, Charles. I don't recall giving too much detail other than saying, I use these various tools, methodologies, and stuff like that, rather than what my particular strengths or weaknesses were as a coach.
Yeah.
I don't think I provided that kind of detail.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did
I
you
think a lot comes out of the
did you include anything
session.
about specific accreditations?
No.
No. Okay.
Um, no. Nothing that I was kind of working towards.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you go to the last one? I find this quite responding when we expressed I and Joy and Nancy about the broader contribution, the session. But again, this is but overall, I know I'm tonight the bad cop, but I'm quite impressed how much it picked up and from the session because they're the profiles we filled out, very, very quickly and yeah. So yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Okay. Excellent.
Great. Well, I definitely got something out of that, just from that very brief recap. Um, although it felt a little bit painful.
It is, yeah. Uh, uh, well, luckily, I mean, if you're using Mentri on your own, it's just you reading it. You're not in a room, right, of 50 people watching. You get feedback. Yeah.
I was the bad client. I continued from bad cop to bad client. I stayed in role.
There is a transcript of the whole session as well, that
Okay.
you could go back to. Obviously, we just looked at the summary there. Yeah. Andres, or Charles, do you want to make a comment about the training?
I'm gonna defer to Charles on this. He's done a lot of the heavy lifting, yeah, on this piece.
Sure. So Mentri it's really trained to it's trained primarily on the onboarding questionnaires that the coach completes both on their own methodology and their developmental goals, and then on the client's context. So what their developmental goals are, what kinds of coaching work well with them, what don't, sensitivity areas, things like this. So it's a combination of those two sort of core pieces of onboarding context, coupled with the relationship history, which is all of the conversation transcripts over time. So in principle, Mentri is sort of a neutral canvas that you paint the relationship on, and that's the training material. And then, yeah, if it's lacking that context, it will then sort of defer to more generic best practice, I suppose I would put it. But the richness really comes from the relational data and the onboarding data that the coach fills in. So it's really there for because the whole ethos of it is that the coach's judgment is front and center, and so it's really a platform to be shaped by the coach himself. Yeah. It would pretty much, it would defer to sort of generalized best practices in the way that any LLM would really. So what differentiates it is the data that we're bringing into it from the coach and the client and the relationship context, and that's what tailors the outputs. So the output that you saw, like the client recap, for example, is it will try to, I don't want to say necessarily mimic, but it will shape how it frames things based on the coach's methodology and the methodology that they practice. And it will actually even use how the coach communicates with the client in that session as a sort of linguistic benchmark as to how to communicate with this client as well. Yeah. It's yeah. So in the same way that any LLM is trained on the sort of whole corpus of sort of human data, it has all that in the background, and then it's these pieces of contextual data that we're bringing from the coach and the client that direct it where to focus, essentially. I mean, I think I probably use the word best practices a little bit flippantly. What I'm trying to say is that it will just behave in the same way that a ChatGPT or a Claude or this particular model is trained on Claude, and so it will just behave in the same way that any LLM will do, which is drawing on the whole human data set and coming up with the functions have all.
It's read everything.
What was that, Nick?
It's read everything, including your stuff.
Everything. It's read everything.
Oh, Jonathan has a question.
Yeah.
It's quite a complex question. So all of these bits of data that we're gathering become variables that we can refer to. So it's sort of compound prompting. So for every output that it produces contains, for example, here is the session transcript. This is the conversation that's just happened. This is the coach's context. This is what the methodology they abide by, et cetera, and this is the client. Sorry. That would be a question for our developer. We're primarily basing our iterations on the outputs as opposed to the underlying chain of thought. Okay. The best answer I can give you on that one. Yeah.
Patrick, you have your hand up. Changes, if you could just elaborate a little bit more. So does it bring changes to the structure of the coaching itself? How do you say a little bit more of how you see that so we can answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you now. Yeah, so you're asking if having that presence of Mentri transcribing during the session, does that change the relationship? That's a very good question. That's a very good question. So I would say it often does create a bit of friction, particularly with coaches or clients who are not used to having something like that present. Right in the session, seeing the Mentri transcriber there. But it's one of those things that it's quite new to have something listening in, but it's happening more and more, right? So if you use Firefly's note taker or Fathom or one of these, we see these right in our calls. So I think there's a gradual a client, sort of desensitization, desensitization process that I think happens. But I think, I mean, it does have that effect. I don't know, Charles, if you have any thoughts on this one.
Can I add to this, Andres? And that came up also in the article or the Oxford present or Brooks presentation we were together working with. It's also important, and we didn't have time to do that today in the contracting, that when you contract with a client, and that is now being more and more also part of the coaching schooling, that we are not relying that, okay, we get used to it, and but that we make it a very conscientious part of contracting. So we have that, and also here I gave it the name as the third presence. It's like a person in the room. It's not just something out there, but it's like a third person, a third presence in the room. And so with the contracting, that third presence of AI, of the AI, considering it like almost you contract a person, an observer, a witness, another person in the session. So yeah,
Yeah.
we bring it into the room.
Yeah, it just sparked that just another thought I want to share. Yeah, as you said, the contracting is critical that you both agree that you know upfront what it's
Right.
about. There's also data privacy measures that we've implemented to sort of take the edge off. So, for instance, when it transcribes, it pseudonymizes everything, so it takes out your personal names. So any stories, personal stories that are shared, there's no name that is attached to, right? So and these are measures, right, that we take to again take that edge off. But yeah, the contracting is critical, as Ursula said, and both for both people to know what's happening and to agree and all those things.
Yeah.
And just from my side, I think when the trust is there already with the coaching client, um, they've been very enthusiastic about using it and seeing what comes out of it. Um, but with a totally new client, I felt a little bit hesitant at first because I wanted to build a relationship before I took that step. Patrick, I think you're next.
Right, right.
So it's
Yeah. So Charles, you want to?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to answer your question simply, it's Mentri is built via system prompting on top of an
Yeah.
LLM. Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's sort of so I'm using the word trained loosely, but it's trained by the data that's brought into the platform via the coach and the session transcripts. But that's sort of flowing on top of the system prompting, which sits on top of the LLM. That's the sort of the stack.
Yeah.
And we've tested a variety of different underlying models and landed on the one that we landed on. Yeah.
Yeah, we started designing this last year. So I think it was October or September. And even since then, the technology has advanced already leaps and bounds. I mean, we have Fable now, which is an incredible AI model that we didn't have back then. So yeah, so that's an interesting question, right? It's that moving target, Patrick. But I think, I mean, it's interesting because Mentri, initially, the vision for this was to support the coach, to help to help give them feedback, to help them reach their development goals, and to ease the summarizing of the session, those kinds of things. So it's targeted to that sort of narrow niche. But it sounds like what you're talking about is kind of a broader, and I mean, I do think the LLMs out there are capable if you prompt them, if you set the right guardrails and the right focus to do much more.
Interesting implications, I think, for coach training with inexperienced coaches, and obviously applications of kind of reading facial expressions and gathering tone and stuff. There's potential for the future. June, you've been very patient.
Uh, yeah, sorry, I'm itching. Sorry that brought up a few things. I'll just say it quickly. I imagine others have some thoughts on that. Yeah, really sort of profound thoughts and kind of extending our vision, right? Way off into the future. Just my sense, so identifying archetypes. Just from my experience, working with AI, building AI, that's one of the things that it's best at. It's so powerful at identifying themes, not just themes. When I say themes, they sound superficial, but even deeper elements or dynamics that are beneath the surface. It is so good at that already, Jiyun, that I definitely see that as being possible. I mean, even yeah, even now.
Already have. Okay. And those are such wonderful questions. And can I remind us of before we went into into the demonstration, there were the 4 points that what prompts development, whether that's a person or AI. There are four, and a lot of that goes back to Otto Lasky's framework. But so contextual press, there needs to be pressure, the challenge, subject-object movement, relational holding, and dialectical capacity. So that for me brings it back to whoever, whatever accomplishes that. If AI gets there, it may not, but those 4 points, those are my anchors or my lenses to look at it. Right now with the relational holding,
Mm.
but so in that might give a little bit of an answer or reminder for you, Jejun, to maybe that is one lens to your question. How how do we really get into the vertical orientation with
Yeah.
AI, or can it? Can it?
Ursula, I can't. I have to mention Senda.
Yes,
Just
please do.
Oh, go on,
so
Andres.
what's that? Was that Nick?
I said, go on, Andres.
So well, look. So we're developing right now. So Ursula and Nick have tried this. It's so we're building right now what we call a developmental companion. So it's trained on constructive developmental theory, the Robert Keegan sort of school of thought, and it's meant to sort of it sort of counters, in my view. I'm a bit biased, but I do think it counters a lot of the charges being levied against AI at the moment, such as sycophancy, hallucination, etc., because of how it's designed. So it's designed. So right now, models, the big LLM models, most of them are, let's call them trained on resolving uncertainty, giving answers, which is, what our bad cop today was pointing at. And there's a few other things that it does, but it sort of it doesn't let you sit with uncertainty. And as we know, uncertainty, tension, friction, pain, that is the fuel for development. So in a way, it is, the current LLM models, the way that they have been trained is, I would say, antithetical to development. But we're building a model that sort of counters all of that because it that's exactly what it does. It's designed to hold you gently and sit with you calmly in your uncertainty and nudge you towards it. Right. So that's sort of what the model is based on, and it's meant to spur our own, individual development. So yeah, I'd be happy to share that link. It's still kind of an early stage, but it's something we're working on.
Thank you, Andres. We're running over time a bit, but if people are happy to stay on, that's great. If people want to go, that's entirely up to them. Michael, did you have a question?
Um, yeah, I'm happy to weigh in just a little bit, just going back to how, the choices that we make, because we went through, we spoke with about 80, 90 coaches in the development of this. And we had a lot of surprises along the way that made us change design direction. And what you're pointing at, Michael, I think, yeah, I think, and Charles, you can, fill me in if, the gaps that I have here. But I think we knew that we wanted to put this in front of coaches, right? We wanted to that was our, initial audience for this, individual coaches. And we know the hesitancy, I mean, the reluctance that and just the novelty, the newness of this, the unknown. It's still a kind of an early emerging sort of market that there's a lot of people who don't trust AI yet, with good reason. There's, for all we know about it. So what we wanted to maximize the coach's sort of agency in the whole process. And I think that was our kind of one of our guiding principles. This is for the coach, is never to replace the coach because we want to preserve that human connection. AI can't do that. It doesn't have a nervous system, doesn't have emotions. So we leave that sort of untouched. And we just bring AI in creative ways to support the coach. The coach makes has the final say on everything. So that sort of thing. Maximize the coach's agency. That was yeah, if that adds any insight, but that's the sort of direction that we took. But your point about democratizing or sharing it with the clients is an interesting one, I think. Yeah, for us to consider.
Yeah, I've
I
kind of found my
oh,
experience is about, you know, eh, Mentri is just another personality that kind of comes to the coaching session and provides some interesting input and then saves me a lot of time as well. So, um, so it's almost like having a unpaid supervisor, and that's kind of quite helpful. But I don't have to pay that much attention to it if I don't feel it's relevant or useful. But of course, not everybody would probably work like that. Um, Thank you so much all for being here. It's taken us a while to get this session. We really wanted uh, to have a good group, and you've been a great audience. So thank you very much.